The Timeline is a Blue Wire podcast. Welcome to the Timeline, of Phoenix Suns podcast. We have an emergency episode. Sam, the Phoenix Suns traded Kevin Durant, and we're very excited, aren't we?
I'm very excited for the era of Kevin Durant to be over, just as I'll say the same thing when one of these days, eventually, hopefully, the era of Bradley Beal will be over. But man, do they like to test me. They really like to test me. If you are a fan of this particular basketball team, this organization, you have been tested and put through some of God's strongest trials, truly. This is a package that we have to talk about. It is not good. No sugarcoating it. It is not a good return for Phoenix.
It has one good asset, basically.
There are ways that they could salvage it. But from our most recent reports, we're recording here 30 minutes after the trade, so we're kind of seeing new reports come in. Yeah, they could salvage this, but it looks like maybe they're so stupid that they don't want to. We have to talk about it. What was your initial reaction?
Okay, let's just go over exactly how this went down. Shams Charania broke the news. First, Gambo tweeting this morning, first thing I see when I wake up, that the deal is close. And then we have Shams Charania tweeting, breaking, the Phoenix Suns are trading two-time NBA Finals MVP Kevin Durant to the Houston Rockets for Jalen Green. Pause for dramatic effect. Dylan Brooks, the number 10 pick in the 2025 draft, and 5 second-round picks. And my first reaction is that the Suns got fleeced. They got fleeced. Look,
Gambo, it's really funny that Gambo tweet being like, yeah, they just need one more piece this morning to put them over the edge, and then they'll agree to this. What do you think that was? The 59th overall pick in this year's draft, which was one of those 5 second-round picks that they got? Was that the piece? Was that what made them say, yeah, this is great now, we'll take it?
Look, we are on this podcast, right? We've done so many fake trades for Kevin Durant. We've talked through every possible iteration of a trade for Kevin Durant, and we've even talked about, as their leverage seemed to dwindle over the past few days, even though you continue to have optimism and I continue to dive into a deep pit of despair.
It's okay, yeah.
Even with all that, we started from the idea that Jalen Green is now currently a negative asset. Now we'll break that down, because I know there's a bunch of Suns fans right now that are talking themselves into the idea of Jalen Green.
Don't do it.
And by the way, if you're one of those Suns fans, Matt Ishby is so grateful for you. He's so grateful for you. Because, and look, most of you don't listen to this podcast, if I'm being frank, because the people who listen to this try to think about things analytically, because that's what Sam and I do. Jalen Green is a negative asset. We'll talk about why. But if you start from the idea that Jalen Green is a negative asset, you start from that idea, then you have to be paid to take him on. A team has to give you assets. They have to attach assets to him in order for you to take his contract. And this team, the Houston Rockets, is flush with assets. They have Jabari Smith Jr., they have Cam Whitmore, they have multiple picks of their own, they have multiple Suns picks of their own, they have Tari Eason, they have Reed Shepherd, and guess which one of those the Suns got? None of them.
You couldn't get any of it. I mean, really, the fact that you couldn't, and I understand, you're bidding against these other teams who apparently just did, like, what happened to that Toronto report? I guess it just, their interest was non-existent, because Toronto was maybe never really a wild card. I understand if they didn't want to give Jakob Poeltl, but guess what? Like, either Quickly or Barrett and anything would have been better than this. So I guess they just really weren't interested. Miami, I guess, just wasn't willing to play ball if, like, even Jaime Jaquez and the 20th overall pick this year weren't on the table. Because here's my thing. Our trades all throughout the past 4 months, if you've been a regular listener, yeah, obviously they were too ambitious. Okay, they're too optimistic. We are a fan podcast at the end of the day. We're trying to get the best possible deal for the Suns. I understand that. But
and we weren't factoring in a 60-year-old old man who's never worked in the NBA before making the trade when we first started this too.
That's true. The one thing that I feel like you and I were really in agreement on all throughout this process is that Jalen Green sucks. This was the one, guys, I can't stress enough. This was the one guy that we didn't want. This was the one guy. We were willing to construct packages around Andrew Wiggins with the Heat, which I don't like, or even Terry Rozier. I did a Terry Rozier and Duncan Robinson package with the Heat, where you get a couple picks and call it a day. I would have preferred that to Jalen Green. We did packages with Minnesota built around Julius Randle or Rudy Gobert. That would have been great compared to this. And why is Jalen Green so bad? You must be asking yourself. He's young. He's only 4 years into his career. He averages 20 points per game. He's a bucket. What are these guys? Where do they get off on telling me that Jalen Green is so bad? He can't be that bad. He is that bad. 4 years into his career, Jalen Green is the same exact player as when he entered the NBA. 20 points, 3 assists, 2.5 turnovers, below average shooting efficiency. Every single year that he's played for the Houston Rockets, their defense has been considerably and demonstrably worse with him on the floor. In fact, when Houston was at their best this year, this was a great season for the Houston Rockets until the playoffs. They were 8 points. Their net rating was 8 points worse with Jalen Green on the floor. And that was one of their top scorers. 8 points worse. Get into the playoffs. He needs to play a pivotal role to help them get past at least the first round. And what does he do? 7-game series. He averages 13 points, 3 assists per game. He shoots 37% from the field. Has an atrocious series, is one of the worst players in the entire NBA playoffs. Now, granted, he's young. You could say, oh, well, he's young. Maybe he'll get better. 4 years in, he has not improved. He's been the same player every single year. He gives you 20 points. He does it inefficiently. He doesn't play defense. He doesn't make his other players better, his teammates. If I were Devin Booker, and we need to talk about the possibility that all of this is just a leverage play, and regardless of what Gambo is saying, they are actually interested in moving this guy before July 6th. If I were Devin Booker, the roster construction being what it is right now, if what Gambo said about Jalen Green is true, and they truly want to build a backcourt around Booker and Green,
which, by the way, we haven't mentioned, Gambo is saying that the Suns are planning on keeping Jalen Green.
Yes. I'm offering an ultimatum if I'm Devin Booker. I'm literally marching to the front office, pounding on the door, kicking open the door, and saying, you are moving this guy before July 6th, or here's the trade request. It's in now. Jalen Green is under contract for 3 more years, including a player option that he has. He is a negative player. Bradley Beal is a negative player. Dylan Brooks, arguably negative player. Grayson Allen, neutral player. Royce O'Neal, neutral player. By the way, what do all these have in common? They're all shooting guards, and that's the entire fucking roster right now. So you guys got to do better than this for Book. If this is your plan for building a competitive team around Devin Booker, this cannot be it.
There was always a chance that the Kevin Durant trade, when the Suns traded for Kevin Durant, at the end of all of that, it ended with Devin Booker leaving the Phoenix Suns. There was always a chance, because when you put that much assets in a trade, there's not a lot you can do after that team's over. And what you hope is that the Suns win in that time. They won 1 playoff series. They won 0 without Chris Paul. 0 without Chris Paul. Once he was gone, no playoff wins. Not a single game, in fact. The one way to salvage that is this Kevin Durant trade. The one possibility where you put enough assets on this team to try to extend its ability to be good, and your ability to hold on to Devin Booker, the one thing you could do is nail this trade. The Rockets played about 9 players. They had a rotation of more than 9 players if you include Cam Whitmore and Jock Landale, who didn't play most of the time. If the team was healthy, those players did not play. They played 9 players. The 9th worst player on that team in net rating, Jalen Green. The 8th worst player, Dylan Brooks. They traded the two players who, when they played, two rotation players that when they played, they were at their worst. They traded those two players for Kevin Durant. They nailed the trade. There were 33 players in the NBA who shot 17 or more field goal attempts last season. 33 players who shot 17 or more field goal attempts per game. The only players worse than Jalen Green in true shooting percentage of those players were LaMelo Ball, Miles Bridges, and Brandon Miller, the three players who played for the Charlotte Hornets, one of the worst teams in the NBA. Jalen Green was the fourth worst player in the NBA who shot more than 17 field goal attempts in true shooting. He was an inefficient scorer who shot a lot. By the way, of those players, of those 17 players who shot 17 or more field goal attempts last season, guess which player was last in assist percentage?
Jalen Green.
Jalen Green. He was worse than Cam Thomas. He was worse than Tyler Hero.
People are going to compare him to Devin Booker. They're going to say, like I just called him empty calories or whatever. And they're going to say, well, there was a time in Book's career when people were, levying the same sort of criticisms at Book. It was never like this. It was never remotely like this. And Jalen Green isn't just substantially worse than Devin Booker, which he obviously is. He's substantially worse than Bradley Beal, who Suns fans hate. He is worse than Bradley Beal. This season, I don't have the Beal numbers in front of me, but I do have the Booker numbers. Booker shot 69% at the rim this season. Green shot 64%. Bit of a difference. Booker shot 47% in the short mid-range. Jalen Green shot 35%. Booker shot 53% in the long mid-range. Jalen Green shot 35% again. And then he also shot 35% from three, which, credit to him. Booker is not the greatest three-point shooter. We've always said that. And Jalen Green is a respectable three-point shooter who takes 7 or 8 of them a game, but he has no mid-range game. He's not a good finisher. Like you said, he doesn't pass. Oh, by the way, he was also third percentile in the NBA in deflections defensively. He doesn't make plays on the ball. So, this idea that, Gregory and Ishbia march into a press conference and say, we're going to build a new vision for the Suns. We're going to build a gritty team that makes fans proud defensively. If you actually plan on playing Jalen Green 35 minutes a game next year, then that's a crock of shit, because there's no way that that's going to happen with him on the roster.
Just to clarify, third percentile means 97% of the NBA is better in deflections than Jalen Green was last season. I just you can't sell this to Suns fans if they plan on keeping Jalen Green. And by the way, I will say, because of the poison pill provision, this trade cannot be official until July 6th. That means that this trade is only agreed upon. That means that the 10th overall pick is going to walk on stage and put on a Houston Rockets hat. They're picking for the Suns at that point. It's not going to be the Suns making that pick as far as the TV broadcast goes, but it will be a Suns player. That means there is time for this trade to expand. There is time for this trade to change. As it currently stands, the Suns save $500,000 in salary based on this, meaning they're still in the second apron after this is all over. They have 5-6 shooting guards on the roster, a roster that makes 0 sense. They added 0 size to the roster. And they added, by the way, look, if you think Dillon Brooks is a good player next to Devin Booker, I can make the case for that. One of the better defenders in the NBA. Shot a ton of threes last year.
He shot 40% from three. He's a role player. He's gritty. That at least kind of, you can squint and you can see it.
But it doesn't make sense if it's Jalen Green, Devin Booker, and Dillon Brooks.
And Bradley Beal.
And Bradley Beal. And Grayson Allen. And Royce O'Neal. Yeah. Colin Gillespie.
And Jace Richardson, of course. Soon.
It's a tiny team with 0 grit other than Dillon Brooks. It's impossible for me to be happy about the idea of them keeping Jalen Green. Now, I will say this. July 6th is when the trade becomes official. Gambo, he gets his info from somewhere. If you're trying to get Bradley Beal to leave, if you're trying to get Bradley Beal to choose a new team, if you're trying to buy out Bradley Beal, very publicly and very loudly saying you plan on keeping Jalen Green and that Kevin Durant's gone, it's not the worst way to do it. I mean, you shouldn't keep him. You shouldn't keep him. It doesn't make sense. It's going to be a terrible team, if I'm being honest.
You acquired a guy. I hate Bradley Beal as much as the next Suns fan, and I want him gone too. But it's just like, if your strategy for getting rid of Bradley Beal is acquiring a guy who's actually worse than him and playing him over Bradley Beal, is that really this 4D chess galaxy brain maneuver that we should be applauding?
No, I'm not applauding anything. Threatening to keep a bad player, look, that holds Suns fans in jeopardy too. It doesn't make sense. Like, I don't know. Like, is there a sort of bright side version of Jalen Green that we can even make? Is there a case that we could make?
I mean, if he like rapidly transforms his offensive game, I just don't see it, man. I mean, like, I understand progress in the NBA is not linear. And sometimes, guys come in as a rookie and it takes a little while, and sometimes they go up and then they go back down, and sure.
Even if he rapidly transforms his offensive game, first of all, he's not going to become a point guard, right? He's not going to change. Passing is just one of those things that if you're good at it young, you'll be good at it old. If you're not good at it young, you're probably not going to be good at it once you're old. Once you're older, I should say. In order to be a good fit next to Devin Booker, and I'm sorry, I immediately go back into the negative. In order to be a good fit next to Devin Booker, he would have to transform the other side of the ball. He would have to become one of the better defensive players in the NBA at his position. Then you can play next to Devin Booker. Then it makes sense. Devin Booker can do all the stuff offensively. You can do all the stuff defensively Devin Booker is not capable of doing. Athletically, he's probably good enough to do some of those things. Mentally, has never shown it. Has never done it. He would have to do it consistently every game.
I was going to say, if their version of athleticism is just a guy who dunks and will show up on highlight reels to post on their Instagram account, Jalen Green can do that. He is a high leaper. But having a 40-inch vertical as a 6'3 shooting guard or whatever doesn't mean you can play defense. It never has. You need to have the actual motor and work ethic in order, and communication abilities in order to be able to like work as a unit every single game. And Jalen Green, in 4 years, he has never shown that. So I just really struggle. Again, this was the one guy. This really was the one guy. I could have sat here and made cases if they had traded for Andrew Wiggins about how, okay, he's not my favorite player, but whatever, fuck it, we ball. I can't do that with Jalen Green, guys. I'm sorry, I can't. Now, if they use it as leverage to get rid of Bradley Beal, that's great. But in my mind, it's just they got rid of one bum and they acquired another. That's what it is.
Another that's going to be impossible to get off of. Like, really, unless a team... You have to be a bad team to talk yourself into Jalen Green. So if you can find a bad team, obviously the Nets are out there. The final prediction trade I had was essentially this trade, but with Jalen Green going to the Nets and Claxton coming back here and us attaching the 29th pick to Jalen Green in order to convince the Nets
would
to
make
take
me
him.
feel. And again, I know Gambo is saying they don't want to trade Jalen Green.
But and I included Cam Whitmore, by the way, which is not included.
If for some reason it can happen, that just makes so much sense. Getting Claxton back, like you could just imagine Brian Gregory walking into the press conference then, introducing Nick Claxton. Here's your new starting center. Dylan Brooks, here's your gritty shooting guard next to Book. We're going to run point Book next year. They draft some wing at number 10. And then you have a team. You have a team that kind of makes sense. Would it win more than 35 games next year? I have no idea. But you have a roster construction that kind of makes sense. Your roster construction right now makes me think that you're going to win 20 games next year unless you figure this shit out fast, because it looks ugly.
So much has to change.
Unbelievably ugly.
You know what's tough about that too is when you're in the desperation mode the Suns are about to be in, they have no leverage. There's just no leverage. If you're talking to a team about getting rid of Jalen Green and you currently have Bradley Beal, Devin Booker, and Jalen Green currently rostered, that team is not going to bend over and give you anything. They're just not. And by the way, let's talk about backcourts. Let's say Bradley Beal is gone. The only success that the Suns have had, the only time they have really been good in the playoffs and won playoff games in Devin Booker's career is when they had him next to Chris Paul. Why is that? It's because Chris Paul got Devin Booker easy buckets. Chris Paul allowed Devin Booker to be the secondary ball handler on a team which meant that Devin Booker could thrive running the offense when Chris Paul was off the floor, but when they shared the court together, Devin Booker was getting easy buckets off of the ways that Chris Paul created offense for him. So to build a team around Devin Booker, the one thing we know works is putting him next to a playmaker, someone who can pass. That's the one thing that we know works, because it has. Even conceptually, the best version of Jalen Green is not what we've seen be successful with Devin Booker. I really just don't get it.
Listen, life's all about leveling up. Whether you're handling business on the field or kicking it in your zone, you like to celebrate with cigars that match the moment. That's why you should link up with Famous Cigars to bring you a wild deal. Right now, you can grab 8 premium cigars for just $8. You heard that right. 8 top-rated cigars at $1 a stick. Top quality brands like Oliva, Romeo y Julieta, and Davidoff. Handpicked just for you and worth over $80. Hit up famouscigars.com/cam and lock in this exclusive deal. While you're there, check out their insane selection of premium cigars, all shipped fresh and fast from their massive 20,000 square foot humidor. That's half a football field. Famous Cigars has been in the game since 1939 and still family owned. So celebrate every win with the folks at Famous. 8 cigars for $8. famouscigars.com/cam.
Let's talk about the rest of this trade, though, because there's 2 other things. There's one thing I actually like. I'll start saying it like this. Good news. There's one good news. We don't have to root for Rudy Gobert.
I mean, I would have been able to do it. I would have been able to talk myself into it easier.
The bad news, we have to root for Dillon Brooks. It's not that much more exciting.
I mean, Rudy Gobert is a better player than
he's
Dillon
player. He's a better
Brooks,
player.
That's for sure.
I mean, he's older. Not much older, but he's older. How much older is he? I don't even know how old Dillon Brooks is. I should check.
He's 29.
Okay, yeah. So he's still in his 20s. So he is, being smaller and older is actually not as bad as being huge and old. That stuff catches up to you pretty fast when you're huge. What do you think of Dillon Brooks?
He's a dog. If they want to acquire people who are actually going to get in fistfights in the locker room next year, which, KD threw water on that report from Boogie Cousins the other day saying we never got close to hitting each other in the locker room, which I'd absolutely believe. Dillon Brooks might hit Bradley Beal if he's still on the roster in 2 months. For sure, I could see that happening. He shot the 3 really well last year. He's always been among the worst finishers in the entire NBA. That's just a given with Dillon Brooks. And as a defender, he's a great point of attack defender. He's not insanely disruptive. I think his wingspan has always been only about what his height is. He's not one of these 7-foot wingspan types. But he has motor. He is a dog. He plays with hustle. That's undeniable with Dillon Brooks. So he's gotten into it with Devin Booker in the past, but only in the way I think that, competitors really try to mess with each other in the heat of the game. And maybe the Suns need a bit of that. This is basically their 2025 version of getting Jay Crowder again. So he's kind of crazy, but it's not the worst thing.
6.3 3-point attempts per game last season, shot 39.7. So basically 40% from 3 on 6 attempts last season. He's a career 35% 3-point shooter. I'll just read his last 4 seasons 3-point percentages just so we understand the full picture of what it's like to root for Dillon Brooks. 39.7% last season, 36% previous season, 32% the season before that, and 31% the season before that. Not exactly a consistently great 3-point shooter, but did have his best 3-point shooting season last year on a team that did shoot a lot of threes, or attempted to shoot a lot of threes. And he was one of the guys that was just shooting a ton of them. If he can maintain high-level defense, which I do think he's capable of, and don't get me wrong, he's smaller, and he gets into people in a way that spurs them on to actually be better in a way. You know what I mean? All-star players want to play better against Dillon Brooks, famously poking the bear with LeBron, and you talked about it. Devin Booker and Dillon Brooks have gotten into it with each other in the past. We know he's done that with Jimmy Butler. Other players, he definitely does that too. But effective, great at moving his feet defensively, strong because he's got sort of a lower center of gravity, is capable of moving around screens, absorbing contact, can guard up, like he's essentially the size of a shooting guard, but he can guard small forwards and probably some power forwards in the NBA.
He's played power forward before, yeah. I mean, he's like 225 is what his basketball reference page lists him at. I don't know if that's exactly accurate, but he plays power forward in stretches because he's big enough to do it. He can't rebound like a power forward.
No.
But he can guard a bigger wing for a few possessions.
Yeah, or a game if necessary. And
they need to get much, much bigger as a roster, though. If we're talking up Dillon Brooks, it's like, oh yeah, he can play power forward. Like they have a lot of work to do.
We're talking 2015 basketball when we talk about that. We're not talking 2025 basketball, which is just different. It's changed. Good teams have gotten bigger. That's just the state of the NBA that we're in right now. Bigger, more athletic, longer, faster. Continuing to build a team around shooting guard size players is continuing to build basketball as if it were 2015. We're not there anymore. It's a different game now. Dillon Brooks, by the way, effective offensive season last year, but famous for just making dumb decisions offensively. Will shoot when he shouldn't. Will call his own number when he shouldn't. Is a man who thinks when big moments come, he's the guy who should be shooting. And he's not. He's just not that guy. So there will be times that we're watching him that will be incredibly frustrating. But I do think for fans, and the people who listen to this podcast are this type of fan, for fans who watch every single game, this is the type of player that you will learn to appreciate. Because he's going to try hard every night. When we talk about the identity that the Suns are trying to build, it is a player like Dillon Brooks. Does he have things that make him annoying to watch? Of course. I think a lot of these...
He could certainly instill wisdom in Ryan Dunn to teach him how to injure opposing star players.
We need Ryan Dunn. It was something Mikal Bridges was always missing. We need the defenders to be assholes. I'm sorry. We just kind of need that.
Again, it's exactly the Jay Crowder versus Mikal Bridges conversation that we had a few years ago. It's like Mikal is a more talented defender than Jay on the final Suns team. He was, but he didn't have the grit. He didn't not every game. He didn't have the asshole factor.
No,
to just go in there and first possession punch a guy in the mouth.
Yeah. Dillon
Brooks for better or worse, he has that.
He'll probably be suspended a game or two next year. He's going to have a ton of technical...
and he'll foul out sometimes.
He's going to shoot the occasional shot, but he will also guard the opposing best perimeter player on the opposing team for 25 minutes in a game, and he'll do his best to try to get under his skin. And honestly, his defensive numbers, they grade out pretty well. So when he's guarding those players, they shoot worse. When he's guarding them, he does a good job against them. Occasionally, he'll get under a guy's skin and he'll have 50 points on him because that's just what happens when star players really get annoyed sometimes. But I think for the most part, he's going to be a positive defensively for the Suns. And I was convinced, by the way, that Dillon Brooks was going to be on the Suns at the end of this trade. We talked about it on our last week's podcast. I just really thought the Suns were looking for guys like this, and I think they can use Dillon Brooks as an example of what they want this team to be.
My final trade suggested that we were going to get Jabari Smith and Reed Shepherd, so I was way off in terms of what was actually out there. Yeah, I apologize for that, but hey, it doesn't hurt to dream. Honestly, after we get off this podcast, I might just have to go make the Suns in my image on 2K. Do a version of this trade that I can actually respect.
Yeah, video game therapy, basically, at that point is what you're doing.
The 10th overall pick.
That's the one.
That's good.
That's the value. If you want to point out any value that the Suns got, this was it.
5 second-round picks, too. One of them being literally the last pick in this year's draft.
Yeah, do you want to... I can find that.
I have them.
Okay, what are they?
It's the 59th pick in this year's draft, 2 second-rounders.
Basically not a pick, right? A bunch of guys left the draft. So the 59th pick...
I suggested that
which is the last pick, right? Because there's only 59 picks this
there's
draft.
only 59 picks this year because I think the Knicks lost one for tampering or something. The I suggested they should use that on Matt Ishbia's son as like some sort of ambassador, just like a joke pick. Anyway, so they have that. They have 2 second rounders in 2026. That's
Tom
what Gambo
Izzo's
said.
son, by the way, is college age. So
He didn't.
throwing it out there.
Gambo didn't say exactly which ones those are. I assume we'll figure it out.
Yeah.
And then one from Boston in 2030. Who knows?
Which is going to be bad, probably. Yeah.
You don't know. I mean, 2030, anything could happen.
That's true. That's true.
One in Houston. Are we still going to be alive in 2032 when this Houston second round pick conveys? Who knows? But there's that one too. So yeah, it's really, to your point, the 10th pick. And I am ecstatic to have another pick in this year's draft. I just want, like, if you're not going to give me any players I like, fine. Can you please, Mr. Ishbia, Mr. Gregory, Mr. Bartelstein, I'm talking to you if you listen. Anyone in the Suns front office. You have one thing that I like in this trade, and that's the 10th pick in this draft. Can you please just respect the process? Respect the scouting process, and maybe have a list of several guys who you'd like to take with this pick, and not just say, Jace Richardson.
Yeah.
Here he is, Michigan State, Danny Wolf. Hey, I hear that Danny Wolf guy is pretty good. He went to Michigan. Sounds great. Respect the process a little bit. Those guys might be good, by the way. Danny Wolf, I don't know.
Yeah.
I've watched some Danny Wolf tape.
Well,
I think
the
it's
Ringer has
interesting.
him like 11th, I think, right?
I know. Yeah, they absolutely could take Danny Wolf now. And it's the same thing as with Jordan Ott. Like, is it fair that we have to do this with every player who has Michigan ties? No. But some of the voices who have been talking about Danny Wolf online lately, the fact that it's coming from those voices specifically is what scares me. If you know what I'm talking about, you know what I'm talking about. If you don't worry about it.
I'm grateful, by the way, this trade came early enough in the week that we'll have the opportunity to have a draft episode pre-draft where we can talk about the type of players that could be available to the Suns. We have Carter Bryant. Everyone in Arizona probably knows more about Carter Bryant. You mentioned Danny Wolf. Cedric Coward is a guy we've talked about in the past. Maluach, I believe is how you say his name.
Yep,
from
probably
Duke.
Best center in the class.
Somebody that may be available at that position. The Suns did not get
Thomas
a center,
Sorber.
something they wanted. They did not get a center in this trade, something they supposedly were trying to do. So, yeah.
Thomas Sorber is a guy I like. Nick Clifford, Igor Demine. I mean, there's a lot of guys now who just were going to be out of reach before that now we can talk about. I just want to know, again, that they respect the process of the draft. Is there any chance that there's some suddenly Bradley Beal trade out there rather than having to buy him out and waive and stretch entirely, that they can flip some of these picks that they've now acquired?
Put all 5 seconds in it right away. Start there. Like, if you just want to get off Bradley Beal, fine. Just put them all in. Do I want those picks? Yeah, of course. But I also don't want a roster full of shooting guards. So
Hold on. Let me cook real quick.
okay.
Gotta look up.
Okay.
Bradley Beal, he's got to go back to Washington, right? He has to. Bradley Beal and those 5 second-round picks for
Chris Middleton.
Jordan Poole.
Yeah.
Jordan Poole and Rashawn Holmes.
It sucks.
Oh, my God. Another shooting guard who's worse than Bradley Beal?
Yeah.
Are we willing to do that? Actually, Jordan Poole's probably better than Bradley Beal. Where is Jordan Poole on the spectrum of Bradley Beal to Jalen Green?
That's just like a group of players all together. It's basically what you're describing. I don't know. Jordan Poole, probably the best assist percentage of those guys, right?
I think he probably does. Yeah.
That's brutal to even say, but I think he probably is the guy who's the best at that. And, the 5 second-round picks, and this trade could expand. Once again, because Jalen Green starts an extension next year, meaning he's under contract for multiple years starting next year. That's the reason this trade can't be official until July 6th. So they have the opportunity to change it, expand it if they want to. That could be... I think the Suns definitely want Dillon Brooks, so I don't see a world where Dillon Brooks goes somewhere else. Gambo is saying they want Jalen Green. So, Gambo also said the trade was going to possibly happen today, and then it did. So he clearly knows what he's talking about here. It could be a leverage play. The Suns want to keep him. So if a team wants him, they're going to have to give something up to get him. don't think it's going to work with a guy like him who's just starting an extension. It's a 3-year extension, though. At least it's not 5 years. And he doesn't, he makes a lot of money for what he is. I think the contract is really what makes him sort of a negative asset overall. But yeah.
If he was, so he's making 33 next year and then 36 the 2 years after that, which look, it's not that crazy in this era of the NBA, but it's still too much for what he is. If he was making 25 a year to be your 6-man bucket getter off the bench, then this would be a different conversation. But I don't know. I'm not sure they want him to be that. It kind of seems like they want him to be a cornerstone, and I just don't know that he's shown any evidence of being able to do that in Houston. I'm sorry, guys.
What's so frustrating?
I'm sorry if this was a depressing podcast.
No, we have
those
to,
who are still listening.
I don't care. Look, if you want to be optimistic, fine. You can be optimistic as a fan. It's like a self-preservation tactic. It's fine.
Optimism is always just the easiest fucking thing to do. Like, you can always be optimistic.
I'm just so annoyed with the fact that Devin Booker clearly has to be the point guard next year. Clearly. Like, I don't really see a world where they have the assets to get one that's going to actually supplant him in that role.
I think there's a world where they go into the season with Jalen Green and Colin Gillespie is starting at point guard by January, and Jalen Green is the 6th man.
You're right. Exactly. And Bradley Beal is at home. What a disaster. Look, maximizing Devin Booker means making him a scorer first and a playmaker second. And if they're going to make him a playmaker first and a scorer second, bet the under on his points. Start there. Which is just, it's frustrating. The thing I'm most terrified of anything, and look, at this point, I'm not even sure that I'm going to be against it in any way, but that is that this all leads to him wanting out. And if it leads to him wanting out because this team makes no sense, they just make no sense. And if it leads to Devin Booker wanting out, then look, I wish him all the best. I wouldn't blame him. That's all I can say. It's a depressing thought. What else you got? Anything else?
We'll be back in 24 to 48 hours for a bit of a draft preview.
Yeah.
Stay strong out there. This isn't over. There's more work to be done.
We're gonna stream the draft too, by the way, on playback. So join us to watch the draft together. We got to see. Very exciting that it'll be a top 10 pick at the very least. Although the last time they had a top 10 pick, it was Jalen Smith.
Yeah.
I don't think there's really a Tyler Halliburton to skip on in this draft, at least.
Give the people something. They need something right now. Okay. Continue to question your leaders. Question authority. Become ungovernable, Suns fans.
Yeah.
We're gonna riot. They can't stop all of us, no matter how many $2 hot dogs they offer. We'll see you guys soon.
Thanks for listening. Yeah, join us for the draft on Wednesday. We'll be back with an episode in the next few days before the draft talking about what the Suns' options are. And I am looking forward to the draft. Like, I am optimistic about that because I think it's fun. It's cool to see these guys in their lives change. And ultimately, if there's any hope for this team going forward, it's going to be based on that number 10 overall pick. So I hope they absolutely nail it. Thanks, everyone, for listening. Yes, back soon.
For over a century, Johnny Walker has shared its bold spirit with the game of golf. Now, crafted with Devereaux Golf, Johnny Walker introduces the Johnny Walker Blue Label-inspired Sunday Golf Bag, elevating the game with sleek design, Blue Label hues, and refined gold accents. Celebrate your hole-in-one with a premium Sunday bag crafted by Devereaux Golf. Submit proof of your achievement to johnnywalker.com/blue-in-1. Please drink responsibly.